Hello friends, thank you for watching this video. I am Mohamad, and today we're going to be doing a quick introduction about what is infrastructure as code and why do we need it. So let's get started. Okay, so let's discuss how hosting a web application used to be. So what we needed to do is we needed to get a server, and this server, in order for it to run, it needed different level of components. So let's change this color to blue, and then we can change every single component. So we needed, once we had a server, so back in the day, either you got a local server inside your company, or basically you rent one from different service providers like GoDaddy, Rackspace, etc., etc. And basically, once you get your server, what you need to do is you need to set up your operating system if it does not come automatically installed. So that has to be done manually, and I'm emphasizing here on manually. And then once you have done that manually, you need to configure the security of this server. So you need to make sure that you set up all of the security rules, all of the permissions that's needed. And then you needed to set up the user's permissions on the server. Then once you have set up the user permissions on the server, which is all have done, it's been done manually, you needed to basically set up all of the right packages. Then you need to set up all of the network compatibility. So in order for this server to be online and available on the internet, you need to set up all of the networking items. And then once you have set up the networking, you need to make sure that you have the right permissions on the server. And then once you set up all of the right permissions, you needed to basically provision your application. And once you have provisioned your application, you need to make sure that it is aligned with the networking. So application networking. And once everything is done and everything is running, basically the application will be up and running. So we can see all of these were done manually. All of this work that we currently see here has been done manually before, manual work. So what does manual work mean here? It means that some kind of an individual used to have to go to log into these servers, do all of this work and configuration manually. They needed to install the operating system, they needed to make sure the security is up to date, and basically it was all done step by step in a waterfall process. And basically all of this done have introduced a lot of different problems. Why? Because all of this manual work could introduce problems like human error problem. Because with a human error problem, it could be like someone, for example, could forget to set up one security rule, forgot to set up the other one. Within the networking, they did not enable certain port. Within the permissions, they forgot to add a permission, or they added too many permissions. Within the packages or the SDKs, they might have installed a different SDK than we needed. For example, if we need .NET 8, they installed .NET 6. You never know. So there could be different problems there. So that could be the first problem. Second one is going to be take a lot of time, because basically every single step has to be done synchronously. We cannot basically run all of these simultaneously, and basically all of this work need to be repeated. So let's say our application is currently running on one server. What happens if you want to scale it out? So we have to duplicate all of this effort again on scaling out the application to a different server. Once we scale it out to a different server, we need to do all of this again, make sure all of these servers communicating with each other. So more networking on the two servers, and basically it's more time to maintenance. So this will lead us to maintenance. Maintenance is going to be a lot more harder, because basically we have to do all of this maintenance between different servers together, making sure that everything is running as it should be. And as we can imagine, it's going to create another level of complexity. So with that, we can see here that this can be done on a smaller scale project. But if we want to really scale out our application to serve as many users as we want, this is not really feasible, because it's going to require a lot of human intervention, and it's going to require a lot of manual work. So this model here will have worked with Azure, with AWS, GCP, GoDaddy, Rackspace, etc., etc. So with these, what also they have provided us is the capability of automating all of this. And this is where infrastructure as code comes into place. In order for us to do all of this work manually, what we have the capability now of actually utilizing some kind of a programming language or a scripting language in order for us to automate all of this that we need to do. So for example, if I want to create a virtual machine for my application, so I can, for example, make it like this, make it yellow, send it to back. So let's say this is my virtual machine, and it is part of a virtual network. So this is the virtual machine, and this is my virtual network. Within these cloud providers, Azure, AWS, GCP, and GoDaddy, etc., etc., we are able to actually do this. So if we log into any of those different cloud providers, we're able to see, like, we have a simple and nice dashboard where we can actually go step by step, do at least some of these directly on the dashboard, like the operating system, configure some of the permissions from there and some of the networking, and then basically once that has been done, we'll have everything ready for us. But again, this requires a lot of human and manual work in order for us to do this. And as you can see, if you want to really scale this out and you make sure you want to have a versioning of your infrastructure. So if you want to make sure that, let's say we're running right now within version 1 of our application, and this is going to be version 1 of our infrastructure, v1 of our application with version 1 of the infrastructure. So having this running through the dashboard, or having this running through the human, it's going to be unfeasible to do this versioning, because there's no way for us to actually version that work that has been done by a human or through the dashboard directly, because basically the dashboard is going to be relying on the clicks, and the human is going to be basically relying on the information that they have in order for us to accomplish this. And we can see here that this is going to be a problem if you want to scale out. So if version 2 of our application has been run out, but for example version 2 requires some infrastructure change, we're not going to be able to rely back on if you want to roll back, we're not going to be able to roll back from version 2 to version 1, because it requires a lot of again, human intervention in order for us to get there, and it's going to require much more time. So in order for us to avoid this problem and have some kind of a versioning and remove some of the problems that might come into place when doing all of this work manually, we have scripting tools or languages scripting, which allows us to automate the work. And basically this is where infrastructure as code comes into place. Infrastructure as code allow us to create all of these in code, and there's a lot of different languages that we can actually utilize, and one of the most popular one is going to be Terraform. You have something like Ansible, you have Bicep, you have something for AWS which I forgot, and you have all of these different languages which allow you to do all of this. Some of them are cloud provider specific, some of them are general, which is going to be Terraform, and that's why we're going to be focusing on Terraform. So Terraform allows you to create all of the work that's needed directly through code. You don't really have to do all of the work manually. You don't really have to go through the dashboard in order for you to create anything. What you can do is basically create some scripts, and through those scripts you're going to be able to create your infrastructure as needed. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to showcase a very simple example. So let's say I need to create an application, and this application is going to require some kind of a virtual machine. So let me make it as yellow. And first we're going to create our virtual network. So as I come here, as I can see here, this is my virtual network, and my virtual network is going to require a virtual machine. So I'm going to get a virtual machine, and on this virtual machine I can set up the work. So this can be done very easily through the dashboard, but again it has to require a lot of human intervention, and configuration for this is going to require a lot of work. But let me show you how you can actually do this directly through Terraform. And again, I'm not going to be deploying any of this code. It's just basically a simple way where we can actually see how this will happen. So within Terraform, and this is a real life scenario of a Terraform implementation, what we have here is we have Terraform kind of allows us to configure some of the main networking things that we need, and it's going to allow us to set up the configuration first of all for the language before we can actually set up any of the infrastructure that's needed. So as you can see here, the first thing that I need to do is I need to specify what types of Azure or cloud provider that I want to utilize within Terraform. And for this reason, I have told my Terraform that I want to utilize Azure. And as you can see here, I said Azure RM, which is going to be Azure Resource Manager, and I specified the version of Azure that I want, because as we all know, Azure is API based, so they have a lot of different versions of their APIs. So this, when I specify the Azure RM inside my Terraform, I'm telling it which version of the API that I want to utilize. And it's always good for us to keep update with the latest version, and because every single time there's a new enhancement, there's a new security feature that we might utilize, so it's always good to make sure it's always up to date. And then basically what I did here is I have created a resource group, and as we all know, within Azure everything lives within a resource group. So I created this resource group here, and then once I created this resource group, I specified the location of where it needs to be, and then directly I created my virtual network. And this virtual network, as you can see, I called it my network. I specified where the resource group name, my location that's going to be, and the addresses and how it's going to work, and everything is done here is being done through code. So within 26 lines of code, I have created my first infrastructure, I created my resource group, I defined my virtual network, and then and here for example I defined the storage that I want to utilize within my resource group. So I defined the storage account, I gave it the types of replication that's needed, I gave it the account tier that's going to be available, and then basically I provided with the types of container that's going to contain images and what type of access it's going to have. So all of this within, I would say, 30 lines of code, I was able to create my first version of the infrastructure that's going to be needed, and I have set up everything there directly inside my code. I did not have to go to the browser to create everything. I did not have to utilize the user interface to do that. I was able to directly create it through code. And the main purpose behind this is, let's say I deployed my application, I can directly open my terminal, and inside my terminal terminal here, I can just directly do, for example, Terraform in it. And as you can see, I'm initializing my Terraform. I can do Terraform plan, and then basically it will automatically create a plan of whatever needs to be deployed. And once that is done, I can actually see all of the resources that's going to be created on Azure. And once those resources has been created, as you can see here, I have 6 items to be added, for example, and I can see them all here. I can manage them the way I want to, etc., etc. So as we can see here now, this is my first version of my Terraform. It's going to be deployed. So let's say I created something new, I added a new feature, and I want, for any reason it did not work, and I want to basically roll back to the previous version. If I had to done this manually, it's going to require me to do all of those delicate configuration manually on the dashboard in order for it to work. But within Terraform, for example, let's say if I want to remove this, I don't need it anymore, I can just delete it or comment it out. And then, for example, if I do Terraform plan again, we're going to be seeing that instead of 6, we're going to have 5. So automatically Terraform will adjust the changes that's needed, and it's not going to require me to do this work manually anymore. And basically it will make sure that whatever changes has been done in the code, it will be reflected in the cloud provider. And then this will allow you to have a versioning of my application. And this is specifically around my infrastructure, because it's going to allow me to make sure that whatever I'm creating, it's being versioned. If I want to roll back to it, is being monitored for auditing purposes. It's being actually security scanned, because basically all of these items that I'm doing here, we can implement security scanning on them. We can add unit tests to make sure everything is compatible together, and we can see the level of benefits that we can get just by actually automating our infrastructure. So this is going to be where all of the work with the cloud is going to be happening. I highly recommend that you actually utilize infrastructure as code to create your infrastructure on the cloud rather than utilizing the dashboard. So this video was a very quick introduction about infrastructure as code and why do we need it. If you'd like me to explain more about Terraform, how do they work, connecting to different cloud providers, please let me know in the comments down below. If you'd like to support me, please consider supporting me on Patreon or buying me a coffee. With that said, any question that you have, please also mention in the comments down below, and have a great day.